Canes fans, Canes fan, what's going on? Yeah, we out here. Cold, wet, and rainy in Central Texas. And just want to talk about a couple of things, man. As you all know, Manny Diaz is now our new head coach. Kind of thought he was always going to be head coach in waiting. I was shocked when he decided to go to Temple, but I thought it was probably because he had a lot of fundamental differences with Coach Richt, with Mark Richt, and that was part of the reason why he was leaving. Um, but now the coach in waiting is the head coach, and shocking to a lot of us, but probably necessary, was that Coach Diaz, the 25th head coach of the University of Miami Hurricanes, got rid of all the offensive staff and even the strength and conditioning coach. He got rid of everybody. Okay? He got rid of everybody. What do y'all think about that? Because for me, I understand it was needed to be done, but there are a couple of guys I probably would have kept if it were me. I would have kept Todd Hartley as a tight ends coach, and I maybe would have held on to Ron Dugans, even though, let's be honest, guys, the wide receiver core regressed last season. You can call it because of Malik, because of scheme, but there was a lot of drop passes. One of the main protagonists of the drop bug that we had this season transferred. A guy by the name of Lawrence Cager, who always tried to catch with his numbers and not with his hands. But with that being said, who do you guys like to be the new offensive coordinator? Now, I know there's rumors going around about Larry Fedora, and I know that time is against Manny Diaz in terms of picking a staff because of National Signing Day and recruiting season and, spring football. But I don't want him to rush it. You know what I mean? I know you got to be expedient, but there's a difference between being expedient and being rushed. And I'm not quite sure Larry Fedora is the guy. Maybe he's a hell of a better coordinator than he is a head coach, but let's face it, before past couple of seasons, not last season, but when he had Trubisky and a couple of seasons prior, their offense could put up numbers. That one thing they could do was put up numbers, but the word has it that there's a lot of dudes that were ringing the phone trying to get Manny Diaz to convince Manny Diaz that they were the man for the job. So it remains to be seen. And you know what? By the time I upload this video, he probably would have already have made the decision. Who knows? We'll find out. And then one more thing, we had a lot of bowl games this weekend, right? Notre Dame got spanked. Georgia got spanked. Let's see. UCF got spanked. Oklahoma. Now, here's the thing. Out of all those games, there's a couple of games that stood out to me. Georgia. And only reason being because a lot of people are kind of making excuses for Georgia this morning, saying that, they were playing like they didn't really want to be there. They didn't really want to be there because they felt like they should have been in the playoff in place of Notre Dame or Oklahoma, which, and saying that if they would have been selected to the playoff, they would have played a lot harder. Which, let me tell you something, that's bullshit. And if that's true, that's sad. And if that's the truth, let me tell you something. They didn't deserve to be there in the first place, and Georgia will never win a national championship with that attitude. So, because basically what you're saying is that you're a sorry squad that doesn't have any pride, that you don't play for pride. You just give up. You don't have, feeling slighted by the college football committee doesn't motivate you to want to absolutely curb stomp whoever your next opponent is. It just gives you a nonchalant, devil-may-care attitude. That's weak. That's Bush League, man. Come on now, bruh. But I don't think that was the case. I think that's just they were saying that shit because nobody thought that they was gonna get punched in the mouth by the Texans. People keep because the Texans they've been saying for years are the Longhorns the Texans. Excuse me, the Longhorns. For years they've been saying are the Longhorns back or the Longhorns back. You know what I mean? And nobody expected the Longhorns to punch Georgia in the mouth the way they did. So this morning they're making an excuse that they played that way because they didn't really want to be there. That's trash. And if that's the case, then they ain't never gonna get nowhere. They'll never replace Alabama. You know what I mean? Or LS, they'll never be in Alabama or at LSU. You know what I mean? Or in Ohio State. Because the college football teams that I grew up watching, like the 2000 Miami Hurricanes, they got slighted by the BCS Bowl Championship Series. They went into their bowl game. I forgot who they played, man. It's been so long. Was it the Gators? Whoever it was, man, they got slided. They got slided by the computers. And even though they beat Florida State that year, Florida State ended up going to the championship. And I think Florida State ended up losing to Oklahoma. But either way, the Hurricanes, they flipping curb stomped their bowl opponent. Who else got slighted and ended up curb stomping their opponent, man? It's been just the teams that I grew up watching, man. The Hurricanes, the Nebraska teams, the old school Oklahoma teams, Alabama. Let Alabama have been slighted for the college football championship because they had let Alabama have gotten one loss and then the football or two losses and the committee say, well, you're not eligible for the college football playoff, but you're gonna play Texas or Ohio State in a bowl game and see what Alabama would have done. They would have curb stomped the shit out of them, man. So that's just an excuse. And then one more last point. UCF fans, look, what y'all trying to do, I respect what you guys have done, but look, what y'all trying to do, the NCAA has already seen it happen. It's already been done before, and it was done by the University of Miami Hurricanes. And the reason why I'm saying this is that the NCAA is going to move hell and earth to try and prevent that shit from happening again. And what I'm talking about is a small upstart program that was really intended to be nothing more than a warm-up game for the big traditional powers, the Ohio States and the Notre Dames and the Alabamas of the world, and coming out and just becoming a powerhouse and smacking everybody in the mouth and making everybody afraid to play them. Because right now, prior to yesterday, nobody wanted to play UCF. Nobody wanted none of UCF. And I venture to say there's still about 75% of college football teams out there don't want no parts of the UCF Knights. Because they remind me, albeit different rules and not the same impact, because we've already seen it before, and at risk of being ridiculed by my fellow Canes fam, they do kind of have a hint. They do kind of remind me of those early Miami Hurricanes teams. They got attitude. They don't give a shit. They don't care who you are, what your program is. They kind of taunt you a little bit. You know what I mean? They talk shit. They get on the field and they talk shit. They got attitude. They got a little bit of swagger about them. And when you haven't lost a game in 2 seasons, yeah, you're allowed to have swagger. The problem is, you're not what the NCAA wants. You're not what the college football committee wants. And the excuse that they have is that you don't play anybody. So you're not going to get the respect that you deserve until you do one of two things. You either move to a Power 5 conference or go to Notre Dame route and become an independent school where you can schedule you can schedule, or you can stay in your conference, but all your out-of-conference games, make sure they're all Power 5 teams. And they don't have to be powerhouse Power 5 teams. Just like, hey, schedule an NC State here and Missouri there. You know what I'm saying? And then maybe a season opener against a pedigree team. A season opener against a season opener against Alabama or USC Trojans. You know what I'm saying? But until then, you're not going to get the respect that you deserve. And going into future seasons against Power 5 teams, you're probably going to have referees stacked against you as well because they don't like you. Because you're UCF. You ain't supposed to be doing what you're doing. It's the same thing like with the Miami Hurricanes. But you just got to get to that point where you're too good for anybody to deny. You know what I'm saying? And you know what? Me personally, as a football fan, I wouldn't mind seeing, we've had a big three in the state of Florida for decades now. There was a time where, in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, you weren't winning the championship unless you beat one of three teams in the state of Florida. And if you weren't beating one of them teams, you wasn't sniffing no championship. And you know what? I wouldn't mind there getting to the point where there being like a big four or even a big five if Charlie Strong could get it together. Can you imagine that? 5 top 10 caliber football teams in the state of Florida playing football with all the talent. There's enough talent to go around. It's really all about coaching. Okay, Florida's a hotbed. You know what I mean? They got balling ass high school football players in Central Florida and North Florida just like they do in South Florida. You know what I'm saying? These are just some points that I'm making, man. Because it ain't hard to tell. It make it so good that they can't deny. You know what I mean? You got to be so good when you get on that football field. It don't matter that a ref ignores a targeting call or a referee ignores the fact that the opposing defensive back is holding your wide receiver. It just doesn't matter, because if you got an entire squad of all American level wide receivers, and you know what I mean, it ain't gonna matter. If you've got an offensive line that can move heaven and earth, then it doesn't matter. If you got a defensive line that can curb stomp anybody, and you've got all Americans all in that defensive line, and I'm not talking coming out of high school. I'm talking about kids that are talented and they get coached and they get developed to where they reach their full potential, they reach their full ceiling. And like Jimmy Johnson said, you just don't give the referees an excuse. You know what I mean? You're just that good. And that's what I think. I do think Manny Diaz is the man for the job. What going back to the Miami Hurricanes, what caught my attention was when he said that he wasn't. Well, it was written that he's not going to be calling the defensive plays. He's not going to be coordinating. He's going to be the head coach, and he's going to let the defensive coordinator do his thing. So he's basically going to call the right people. He's going to try to hire the right people for the job, and he's going to be a CEO. And with this fire and this energy, that's kind of what Saban does. I think it might be a winning formula if he can decipher and pick the right people that can recognize and recruit talent, and not only do that but develop the talent once they get to Coral Gables. I think Miami would do a lot better than they have the past 3 years, and they didn't do bad the past 3 years. It was just this last season was horrible. 2015, 2016, 2017, those were decent seasons. The defense was good enough, and we had enough lucky breaks to mask a lot of our problems. And what happened was the 2018 season, all of those issues got exposed. And those issues seemed too deep to resolve. And what really, really caught me was that, this Miami staff, the entire offensive staff just got released by Manny Diaz, right? What really caught my attention about that is the fact that Coach Rick, here's the thing about pride and being stubborn, right? And being headstrong. And it made me think, was Coach Rick that proud to basically retire? I was thinking, like, all those guys in the offense, all that offensive staff, whether they were doing a good job or not, every single one of those guys lost their job because you had a head coach, and Mark Rick, that was too proud to make the necessary changes that he needed to make, that he was either told to make or finally realized that he had to make. You know what I mean? Because I think making those changes would almost be an admission of failure, that what you're doing before wasn't working and you needed to change. And one, he wasn't going to fire his son. He wasn't going to do that. And two, I don't think he was convinced that it was his scheme that was the problem. I think he was convinced that it was the execution. You know what I'm saying? But that's all water under the bridge now. So guys, tell me what you think about the stuff that I was talking about. It's just a quick video. I mean, I'm getting off of work. It's raining like crazy here. This road's closed down, so I'm going to take it slow. These Central Texas roads and water, rain, they don't really mix. It's not like South Florida, man. South Florida, them roads and stuff down there, it's just built for that. It's built for the wet. Down here, it's not. Out here, it's not. It's this rain here, the kind of rain that you get here that's happening right now, it might happen total over the entire year. It might happen for about a month and a half. You might get a month and a half worth of this kind of precipitation all year. It's not like South Florida where, Indian summer, that you really only have 2 seasons, wet season and dry season, and rains all the time. But anyway, I'm rambling on. Again, Happy New Year, guys. And give me your questions and comments down below. If you're a Hurricanes fan for 30 years, you just became a Hurricanes fan today, you get love from my way. It's all about the U.